Okay. As of this recording, my review of Alien vs. Predator Requiem is the most viewed video on my channel, with the most responses. So since I got such a great response from that one, I figured I might as well continue on with my movie reviews. So I'm going to do another one for you guys tonight. And I know I went off on kind of a big rant last time when I tore AVPR a new asshole, but I was pissed off, I admit it. But I won't have to do that this time, because tonight I get to talk about a great movie. So, let's get to it. Cloverfield, so named for the military designation given to the monster that rampages through New York City in this film, is what happens when you take the same general concept as the Blair Witch Project and put it in the hands of people who have an actual script to work with and $25 million to burn. It has a lot of the same ideas as Blair Witch Project, like throwing normal everyday people into terrifying situations with nothing but a video camera and a prayer, but the films are night and day in terms of execution. They both keep things very close to the vest, omitting things like music and name actors for the sake of gritty realism, but that's pretty much where the comparison ends. While the Blair Witch Project was about three complete morons running through a forest and yelling at each other for two of the most boring hours in the history of time, the makers of Cloverfield decided to put a little more thought into the whole thing. In fact, to properly express how vastly different these two films are, let me use an SAT-style question to illustrate my point. The Blair Witch Project is to a pregnant woman getting a forced abortion with a rusty coat hanger, as Cloverfield is to, that's right, getting a hot oil massage from all 26 deal or no deal models. If you've seen the trailers for Cloverfield, you might think that this movie is about a giant monster that attacks New York City, but you'd be wrong. This film is really a story about a guy who pushes away the person he cares about most, then realizes the mistake he made, but fears it may be too late to rectify it. All told through the POV of a digicam held by various members of the cast. Now I know that there's been a lot of speculation in the fan community, online, whatever, about the monster itself. People wondering if it's something that we might have seen in monster movies of yesteryear, or whatever, but let me put that to rest right now. The monster in question is not Godzilla. Okay, I know a lot of people, including me, were hoping it was, but it isn't. Having said that, the filmmakers could easily have made it Godzilla, and it would have totally worked, you know, if they had wanted to go that route. In fact, this film felt a lot more like a Godzilla movie than that Emmerich and Devlin debacle back in the 1990s, that the studio tried to pass off as Godzilla, and failed miserably at it, I might add. But the truth is that whatever the monster is, alien, nuclear mutation, genetic experiment gone horribly wrong, I really can't say. You know, the filmmakers don't really bother to give any real answers about this thing, because the giant monster is essentially the least important part of the movie, though by far the coolest. You know, it could have been anything really, a viral epidemic, terrorist attack, you know, some kind of natural disaster, but it's just immaterial. You know, at its core, it's really just a force of nature that destroys everything in its path and provides an impetus to get the characters moving in their respective directions, and that's where the real movie is. You know, we spend the first 20 minutes or so of the story getting to know the cast, you know, our six main characters, and thanks to some really clever scripting by Drew Goddard, we learn everything we need to know about these characters during that time. So when the monster suddenly appears and all the crap hits the fan, and the Statue of Liberty's head goes flying, you're genuinely invested in everyone involved. You know, then of course, you know, things blow up, people start dying all over the place, but by the time that happens, you care about everything so much more. As for the technical side of things, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people who aren't going to like the camera work employed here, and I mean, honestly, there are moments that can be pretty disorienting, I'll cop to that, but there really isn't a whole lot of difference here between, you know, the camera style in Cloverfield and that of a TV show like Friday Night Lights. You know, it might take a little getting used to for some people, but that's what happens when you dare to be different. You know, you're not going to please everybody. Also worth noting are the sets. I was absolutely amazed when I heard that this movie was made for only $25 million, because I thought it would have been much, much more than that after seeing some of these huge set pieces in this thing. But now that I've had a little while to think about it, I get that what I thought were sets were actually just real city locations dressed up to look like a war zone. And I think that we become, as a movie-going audience, we become so accustomed in this day and age to big movies like this, building these gargantuan sets from scratch, that we tend to forget sometimes that the real thing is often much more effective. The set dresser and the prop department really went all out on this, because this was some terrific work right here. Really, really terrific work. The only part they really couldn't have been an actual location was the bridge sequence, which you've seen brief clips of in the trailer. I'm not going to ruin it for everybody, for anyone, but you'll understand when you see it. Some really sick visuals right there. They probably spent a good chunk of their whole budget on that scene alone. So to wrap things up, Cloverfield is essentially a well-written character piece with a monster movie as a backdrop. The herky-jerky camera probably won't appeal to everyone, and I would most likely get totally car sick if I tried to see this thing in an IMAX theater, but that's really a minor gripe, very minor gripe. The filmmakers get huge points for originality. I think this could easily have been released as a big summer movie blockbuster. It's a hell of an entertaining flick. Big thumbs up from me. So go check out Cloverfield. It's definitely worth your $10. That's all I got. I'm done. See you next time.